Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a bonus episode. Today we have an article from OK Magazine that is just breaking a couple of hours ago. So we're not going to bother with a monologue. We're not going to bother with any of that. We're going to jump right into this article and see what OK Magazine has uncovered. The headline: Jeffrey Epstein's executors can't access his fortune, refuse to reveal transactions. This article was authored by Chris Spargo. The executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate can no longer access the deceased pedophile's fortune after refusing to explain a number of concerning transactions. Well, what do you know? Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn are up to no good, huh? Got their hand in the cookie jar, do they? It's not like, we didn't know what sort of slime and scum they were. It's not like they should have ever been involved in this estate or anything. But yet here we are, still dealing with these scumbags. In my opinion, they should not be worried about the estate. They should become guests of the state because they are complicit in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise, in my opinion. Among these are $40 million worth of transfers that lawyers for the estate were asked to explain back in May when they caught the eye of the Attorney General's office in the Virgin Islands. And remember, we discussed those when they occurred, and we've been waiting to add some more context to the initial reports, right? And now it looks like we have that context as OK Magazine is in possession of an email that is going to explain just exactly what's going on here. An email exclusively obtained by OK reveals that the lawyer for the AG's office, Linda Singer, contacted lawyers for Epstein's estate back in May, demanding an explanation for the $750,000 in monthly expenses, which differs from the estate's filed accounting. Payments of $239,000 to the J. Epstein Foundation, $15.5 million in payments for which the estate's explanations do not seem to match the financial records. So still, even though they're under the microscope, even though the whole entire world is watching, even though the authorities are onto their nonsense, these morons, the executors of the estate, Kahn and Indyke, are still playing coy. They're still playing games, thinking they're going to get away with it. Well, folks, that's not going to happen. And if OK Magazine is in possession of emails like this, what do you think the prosecution has? The estate's lawyers did not address these concerns, and as a result, were left high and dry once again last month. So, obviously, the lawyers weren't able to access this account again last month because they did not address these concerns. Now, they were supposed to explain where all this money was going and have receipts, etc., etc. They had none of that. So, instead of coming forward and discussing it or, doing the right thing, the estate, once again, just attempts to do whatever it wants. How can we expect the survivors to be treated fairly by this estate, by these two people? A September email that was also obtained by OK breaks down some of these. Staff payroll and necessary utilities at the estate's U.S. and French properties. Approximately $180,000. That's $180,000 per month. That's what the staff payroll is still at these properties, according to this email. Now, I ask you, why in the hell do these properties need to be staffed? What does that even mean? Make sure they're clean, couple trim jobs every now and then, rake up the front yard, and call it good. Staffed? What do we got, butlers hanging out in there playing ping pong? All of these dollars are being siphoned away from the survivors. Appraisals for sale of the estate's U.S. properties, $128,500. Well, that one's a little more acceptable. If you have to get the stuff appraised if you're going to sell it, right, and turn it into liquidity. So I understand that one. Not so agitated about that. Still, $128,500 seems like a lot of coin to me. Maintenance and monthly parking of the estate's aircraft, including planes and helicopters, $83,560. Folks, $83,560 to park some airplanes and some helicopters? These need to be sold right away. I mean, are you kidding me right now? And furthermore, is there not some rich guy somewhere, one of these people, one of these virtue signalers we always see on TV that talk about how they care about these survivors and blah, 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 that has a shit ton of land that we could just store this stuff on for free? Or for a nominal price? You mean to tell me $83,560,000 a month seems like a good number to you folks? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't have any planes, and I don't have any helicopters, and I don't know how much the going rate for storage fees are. But what I do know is every single time they write a check to these storage places or these maintenance workers or whoever may have you, that is less money that these survivors are going to see. Legal counsel over $4 million with an M dollars for services rendered during the months of May through August 2020, including to defend against 1, the Attorney General's pending lawsuit in the Virgin Islands, and 2, 27 lawsuits brought by 48 individual plaintiffs in the state and federal courts of New York, Florida, and Minnesota. So just for the cost of legal counsel, just over the summer, May, June, July, August, $4 million. Now ask yourself, imagine if you got in trouble. Would you have $4 million laying around to find loopholes and to figure out a way to beat the charges? Hell no, you wouldn't. Chances are, if you had a couple of bucks, you'd get yourself a pretty decent attorney. But if he got in front of these federal prosecutors, chances are he or she would get slaughtered. But when you're Ghislaine Maxwell, and you have all the money in the world, and you're Jeffrey Epstein, and you have all the money in the world, you can bring in counsel that cost over $4 million. And then we're not even talking about the criminal portion of the case. We're just talking about the civil portion of this case. So again, I ask you, do we really need to spend $180,000 on necessary utilities at estates that aren't being used a month now? This isn't the total number. Do we need $128,500 for appraisals? Do we need $83,560 for maintenance and monthly parking of the estate's aircraft? Maintenance? They're not being used. What are you maintaining over here? I don't know. The New York Italian comes out in me when stuff like this, and it doesn't sit well with me when I see people trying to make moves and play games with the financial portion of this. People that are trying to eat off of this plate and enrich themselves off of this plate are some of the biggest, most disgusting, gross scumbags going. Lawyers for the estate claim to have less than $300,000 on hand in a September email, while also saying they had missed August payments to the staff at Epstein's various homes. That failed to draw any sympathy from those involved in the case. Again, get rid of all the staff. You don't need staff there. Why is their staff still living there? Who came up with that idea? Who thought that was a good plan? As long as the place is maintained once a month, you send in a handyman to make sure there's nothing broken? Have somebody come in and clip the friggin' leaves? Yeah, you're good to go. You don't need all this other nonsense. How much of this money is actually being used for this anyway, and how much of it has been siphoned off by scumbags like Khan and Indike? Rosalie Simmons Ballantine, a lawyer who is helping to oversee how Epstein's trust is distributed, responded to this call for more cash by detailing her own gripes and grievances. The vouchers supporting the receipts and expenditures are replete with redactions. So basically, the vouchers and the receipts that they provided to the fund are redacted. It's impossible to figure out what they're for even. And they try and turn these in like receipts so that they can get money for whatever the F it is that Indike and Khan think they need money for. And Rosalie Simmons Ballantine, one of the lawyers who's helping to oversee this, is not buying it. Such that it is impossible to determine if they are for the stated purposes or legitimate expenses of the estate. Some examples of this are payroll expenses with no information on who the employees were, what they did on behalf of the estate, or the number of persons paid. Hotel receipts with no information on who stayed in the hotel and the purpose of the stay, wrote Ballantine in her emails. These people were so used to having an open credit card that Jeffrey Epstein provided them that they kept on living the life and they thought the estate was going to pay for it. They're wrong. This needs to end. There should be no piecing off any of this money ever. In addition, there are payments to two of the descendants, the descendants' corporations, Zorro Management and NES, both of which are listed as having no value. The reason for payments to these corporations is unclear. Well, it's obvious what's going on. They're trying to hide this money. They're trying to launder this money. They're trying to move this money. Once again, the money laundering angle pops right up and smacks us in the chops, folks. Ballantine also asked lawyers to use a bigger font in their financial breakdowns and stop estimating property values. Meanwhile, some of Epstein's survivors are finally starting to see their complaint result in settlements. At least 8 women have agreed to accept the money offered to them from an account that has been set aside with $25 million. That's good news. I had not heard that. I know we heard a little bit of it from the New York Post, right? But here we go again, a little tidbit, a little piece of gold stuffed into the article. So, we're seeing that there are 8 women who have agreed to accept the money, and there's $25 million in the account set aside. I'd like to see that emptied. Them 8 women, let's break that up. Let's let them get that $25 million and let's start this off on the right foot. And then let the floodgates open. I want all of the money this man has ever made, even the money we don't know about yet. Oh, you don't think I want forensic accountants hunting that down as well? All of that money into this fund. And then these survivors divvy it up as seen by their lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. That's not a place where I'll ever wade into, right? It's not my place. All I know is this money must all be distributed to these survivors. The account will refill every time it drops below 10 million until a time when all the eligible survivors have been offered a settlement. Okay, well, let's get it started. Let's empty it. And then let's refill it several more times. Let's go, boys and girls. Let's get it going. His $600 million estate is facing close to 40 lawsuits. A majority of the complaints against Epstein have been filed in 3 separate courts in New York, Florida, and Minnesota. That just boggles my mind, by the way. How has nobody in New Mexico, not one person, filed charges against this guy or sued him in New Mexico? If we had a civil case going in New Mexico, that would probably force Hector Balderas to get off of his ass and do something, right? So there has to be more in New Mexico that we're missing, and there has to be a reason why people are still staying quiet about that portion of this case. But do not worry. I am definitely not letting go of that thread. 10 are being tried in federal court in the Southern District of New York, the same venue where Epstein was being tried on criminal charges prior to taking his own life in August, allegedly. 6 of the 10 have been filed by women who chose not to identify themselves in court papers, while the other 4 were filed by women who have gone public with their allegations of sexual abuse. 1. Maria Farmer, who claims she was violently groped by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in 1996, is one of the women. 2. Her sister Annie, who alleges that Epstein made her give him a topless massage when she was underage, also filed as a separate complaint. 3. Teresa Helm was 22 years old when she claims Epstein sexually assaulted her during a job interview. 4. Juliette Bryant, alleges that she was raped by Epstein multiple times and that he emailed her a request for nude photos just months before his arrest. And we all know that scumbag was still abusing girls all the way up till his death. I mean, what we've heard from the Virgin Islands and just the little bit we have access to is enough to make you want to have your head pop. In addition to those 10 lawsuits, 9 others have been filed in New York, but in the state Supreme Court. This includes one complaint that lists 9 Jane Does as plaintiffs and another filed by 2 unnamed females. There are also complaints filed by Jennifer Arias and Tila Davies. Arias sued Epstein days after he went to prison and then refiled to sue his estate after his death. She claims the convicted pedophile abused her for over a year at his Upper East Side townhouse while she was attending a nearby school. Well, we know that they could hear the school bells from Jeffrey Epstein's house, right? And we know that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell love their nubiles, don't we? So when you look at all these pieces to the story and you put it all together, boy, it sure paints a grim picture, doesn't it? That complaint also names 3 of the women in Epstein's orbit as defendants: Maxwell, Leslie Groff, and Kimberly Espinoza. Davies claims she was raped for years by Epstein and then tossed aside when she informed him she had developed an eating disorder. So, look, folks, this estate, from the very beginning, Indike and Khan have been playing games. They should have never been involved. They have no business being involved in re-victimizing these survivors. And it's one of the things that makes me the most angry about the things that have occurred after the fact, right? It's one of the things that angers me the most. They should have no business being part of this. And there has to be some sort of recourse, right? Some way that the lawyers for the survivors, they have to be able to contest this, or the judge has to step in. I don't know how we can get rid of these 2 guys, but I know for a fact one thing's for certain. If we charge them, or if the prosecution charges them with RICO, they'll have a lot bigger problems than this estate. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. The links that go along with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, there's your bonus episode. The Daily Drop is on its way.